Steinberg is here. Thank you. We have a quorum, and as I understand, Senator Harman will be arriving shortly. Members of the public and nominees, today the Senate is in its penultimate week of session. Not bad, huh? Maybe I should be on the Board of Education. And so we are going to try to move this agenda expeditiously, of course, being thorough as well. And so, as Shakespeare once said, we're nothing but to waste night, day, and time. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief. Thank you. Let's make sure that's submitted as part of the record. And we will, we're going to go a little bit out of order as well, which apologize to any of the nominees or families affected. But without objection, we want to begin with file item 2, and that is Tiffany Conklin and Lauren Hammond as members of the Gambling Control Commission. Please come forward. Welcome. Welcome to both of you. Ms. Hammond, my former colleague on the City Council of Sacramento, and Ms. Conklin. You know, the tradition of the Rules Committee is to invite you to introduce any family or special guests, to make a very brief opening statement, and then we'll commence the questioning. And, if I may, we're going to interrupt this proceeding for a very special announcement. And that is Sandra Green. This is her last Rules Committee hearing, and yesterday we had the privilege of recognizing her on the floor. It may have been a couple of days ago. And what the public often doesn't realize is how many dedicated public servants work behind the scenes to make government work and to make the legislative process work. And Sandra is one of those. She's worked for the Senate, and not only one of those, one of the outstanding public servants. Worked 18 years. Am I correct? How many? 18 years for appointments here. And I think if we added up the number of appointments, it would be in the thousands. And we just wanted to recognize you from the Rules Committee perspective, and as a Rules Committee, to say thank you, to present to you this beautiful vase of flowers, to give you a nice card, and to say we really appreciate you. Okay? Now back to the business at hand. Please, Ms. Hammond, if you want to start, or Ms. Conklin, whatever. Go ahead.
Are you sure? She was appointed before I was.
I don't think it matters at this point.
My name is Lauren Hammond. I was a council member for the City of Sacramento for 13 years, and I worked for you, Senate Rules Committee, for 22 years. 7 of those years overlapped. So I know firsthand how hard the members and the staff work. And let me take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge my family and friends behind me. If they could wave. Half of them are introverts, half of them are extroverts, so I won't go into all the names. I am Governor Brown's newest appointee to the Gambling Control Commission in the government business position. I want to humbly thank Governor Brown and his hardworking, great staff for this wonderful opportunity. So as an elected official and a Senate staff member, I have my whole adult life of experience in government hearings, parliamentary rules and procedures, open meeting laws, numerous policy subjects, and community relations. So I want to use that knowledge to help the state of California continue to provide a crime-free gambling atmosphere and utilize mutual respect when working with both card room owners and tribal casinos. I thank you for this opportunity, and I welcome your comments.
Thank you very much. Ms. Conklin?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Tiffany Conklin. You have my resume before you, and you know where I've been the last 9 years. I've been in this building. I worked for the absent Senator Tom Harmon for all of those. I was appointed under the previous administration to fill the public at large position, and in that I have a particular interest with regards to the problem gambling, ensuring that that's taken care of and adequate resources, as well as legislative is my real interest, making sure the measures that go through the legislature and the impact that it may have on gaming in the state of California and the commission, that all of those work together. So with me today are my mother, my aunt, and my 2 children. You can see the little redhead in the back.
Please stand up and welcome to all of you, as well as to Ms. Hammond's family. Welcome to all of you. Please, everybody, stand up as well, Ms. Hammond's family.
And then our chairwoman, Stephanie Shimazu, and our executive director, Tina Littleton, as well as Mary. I just call her Mary Kay because she has the most long name, and she only started 2 weeks ago. She does our gaming for our tribes. She's our deputy director, so that's who's with us today.
And Anna Carr.
And Anna, our deputy for legislation. I apologize.
Very good. Welcome to all of you. Let's commence some brief questioning. I know I have a number of questions, but I'm going to limit it to one because it is timely on our legislative agenda. Over the last several years, there has been a lot of talk about the potential of California legalizing some form of internet gaming. And this year, there has been a couple of bills, and I made the decision, at least on this side, that we weren't going to move those bills this year, but it's likely to be a major subject of discussion at the beginning of next session. What is the board doing to prepare for that possibility?
Do you want to take it or you want me to?
I'll say that we are working with staff. We are waiting for the governor's position. I think you know from my answer and probably Tiffany's, this is going to be very complex. But we also want to make sure that it's the bill, whichever one moves forward, is robust enough to take into consideration games that haven't even been created yet.
What we've been looking at, just at the staff level and at the commission level, is making sure that whatever comes out of the legislature gives us the tools necessary to implement it at the commission. So I know that we have obviously been working with the administration and wondering what their direction was, and whatever the legislation may be, ensuring that it is workable as a regulation, and that we are going to have one chance to get this right for, I think, the nation. If California does go first as the model, so I know it's very important to us that we do it correctly and in a timely manner.
Very good.
And be given the time to write the regulations to implement it.
Right, because undoubtedly, and again, this is an if, not a when, but it's possible because there's a lot of interest in it. There will be, I think, a regulatory process to implement whatever law might be passed, might be signed by the governor. And your agency will have, your board will have a significant role in that. And just want to make sure that you're at least thinking several months ahead and being prepared for that possibility.
Absolutely, and I think interim is the best time to probably do that with folks.
Very good. Let's go around the horn here. Senator Alquist.
Thank you. My one question is, what are you doing to address the issue of problem and addictive gambling, and what else can be done?
Sure. I'll just take that just because the public at large position at the commission has usually handled that position. And what we work with, we have the Office of Problem Gambling that was under the alcohol and drug programs, which has been eliminated. So right now we have quarterly meetings, and the next meeting is going to be at the end of September. And the biggest question on everybody's mind is where does the Office of Problem Gambling end up? Where is it going to be housed? So I know that that's what we're looking at now. I can tell you that that office does a great job of public relations. They have a brand new team that they brought in of a women public relations firm that came in and really did some great billboards and is thinking outside the box as far as putting them in places, those check cashing, the stores. They actually put, do you have a problem gambling, the new actual ad campaign on the envelopes that the money is received in. So I know that these new and innovative strategies are being employed to really get to the folks that would need it most, especially the particular ethnic communities that have a higher level of gambling addiction, and the lower income levels that also have that.
I won't ask a further question, but I will be interested at some other point in time talking with you for you to tell us what are the 3 things you are really doing to address the issue. But that's fine for now.
Sure.
Well, we have self-exclusion and self-restriction at the card rooms. And anything we do with the tribal casinos have to be with the compact. So the governor can look at negotiating with them, because several of the compacts are up, about what they will do with problem gambling. You're welcome.
Thank you. Senator Fuller.
Hi. I'm just kind of wondering, what kind of outreach have you done to the Indian tribes and card rooms to help understand the issues of the industry, and that a lot of us in the audience will, want to know what to expect, and so it's good for you to give a chance to let us know.
Sure. I think most of it is going out and actually just meeting with the card rooms and the tribal leaders and the tribal governments, and that has been the majority of what I've done so far in my job, is actually go out into the field, because you have no idea what these entities really do until you are actually in a casino or a card room. That has been the biggest thing that I have done. And then just really understanding, previously, because of the newness of the commission, that the commissioners weren't in the field as much. And I know that having met with the tribal leaders and the card room operators, I know that they just appreciate that the most, and understanding that we have an open door policy, whether it be with regards to regulation or a tribal matter that needs to be handled at the commission level. I know that has been the biggest help, and I know that they've appreciated that, and then we've gotten great feedback in response to that.
The only thing I can add to that is there is a feeling and an atmosphere from both the card room owners as well as the tribal gaming casino owners that they're going to be treated with respect, which is uppermost, and that they will be treated fairly. And you can only feel that if you've met someone before. You can't take it for granted. So Tiffany isn't underestimating at all how important it is for us, as well as our staff, to get out to the locations. She's been on the commission 4 months longer than I have, so she's had an opportunity to get to a few more places. But our executive director and the rest of our team are here, and they are scheduling us to go, because there's only 3 of us serving right now out of 5. Only 2 of us can do anything at a time, and so we're setting it up so that we don't have those open meeting law conflicts. And it takes time, but we're getting it done. Thank you. You're welcome.
Very good. We now move to Senator De Leon. No questions. Okay. Senator Harman doesn't get the opportunity to grill his ex-staff member here. This is a moment lost. Let's hear from witnesses in support of the nominees.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. Jerome Encinas on behalf of the Rincon Band of Luiseno Indians and the Blue Lake Rancheria. On behalf of Ms. Conklin, we want to convey our utmost support for Ms. Conklin. She has had an excellent track record of coming out and visiting the tribes. and understanding that each tribe is an individual tribal government. And we love the open door policy that we have. And we also want to say that we look forward to fostering a very strong relationship with Ms. Hammond. I've known her for a while, just back and forth in Sacramento politics, and look forward to getting her to some of our tribal governments and our tribal leaders. And we thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Frank Molina on behalf of the St. Inez Band of Shumash Indians, also in support of Ms. Conklin, and looking forward to the relationship with Ms. Hammond as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molina. Anybody else in support? Any witnesses? Is this gentleman coming up to testify? No? Okay. Any witnesses in opposition to the nominees? If not, I would certainly entertain a motion in support of both nominees. I know Ms. Conklin a little bit, but mostly through Senator Harman, and she's well respected. And know you're doing a job. And, you know, Lauren Hammond and I, just like Jane and I are sitting here, we sat next to each other for many, many years on the city council together. And Lauren is a fine person and an excellent public servant. And I'm glad that you are able to continue your public service and support you. So moved by Senator Fuller. Please call the roll.
Senators Alquist, Alquist I, De Leon, De Leon I, Fuller, Fuller I, Harman, Steinberg,
Aye.
Steinberg I.
That is, do we want to leave we can leave the roll open for Senator Harman, sure, of course, so that the vote's not official yet. People could, in fact, change their minds. It's 4-0, and I'm sure Senator Harman will add on as an aye, and it'll be unanimous. We'll get to the floor. We'll try to take up your nominations certainly before the end of session on September the 9th, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to ask Madeline J. Glickfield, as a member of the Water Quality Control Board, the Los Angeles region, to come forward. Ms. Glickfield, how are you?
Very good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
It's nice to see you. We want to move one of those mics, I think, if you would, right in front of you so that you can...
Can you hear me better now, sir?
Yeah, but I would even move it even more to your center there.
Thank you.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. Again, want to give you the opportunity to welcome any friend or family member that is with you today. A brief opening statement, and then we'll ask some questions.
Well, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, if I had known, I would have brought my family with me, but they're here in spirit. I am going to make a few comments very briefly. There is opposition to my confirmation. I have some very specific answers to the kinds of issues that were brought up, and I would look forward to answering your questions after my statement. I would say that I take this confirmation very seriously, and that I also think that there are lots of letters of support from other cities and counties. So what I'd like to do first is tell you what I think I've accomplished as a member of the board, and the board has accomplished since I've been on the regional board. First, I think that one of the most significant things is that we passed and unanimously passed a Ventura County municipal storm drain permit that the cities and the development community can all live with. And I think that it's moving into implementation, and it's very important. Second, it's been 35 years at the Santa Susana site that is one of the most polluted sites in the country, where there was a nuclear reactor, test reactor meltdown, has been causing pollution to the groundwater and stormwater of the San Fernando Valley, the Simi Valley, and the Conejo Valley. We were able, in this last 2 years, to get Boeing to agree to start cleaning up the stormwater pollution. We did it by allowing them to remove the numeric limits so that while they were making the changes and improvements, we would not be fining them. And I think it was a very good compromise that we made. We are going to have this year the Los Angeles Municipal municipal stormwater permit, and I have focused on trying to find a way to implement all of the total maximum daily loads that we have in the way that's most cost effective for the dischargers. We are working very hard with the publicly owned treatment plants to get them to maximize the amount of recycling that they're doing so that we can take less water from the north. And finally, what will I do if I'm confirmed? Well, I have looked at these letters, and I'm going to try to find a legal way to communicate better with the cities that are not supporting my nomination, and they have expressed some frustration. So I intend to do that, and I intend to do that with some help from Senator Hernandez. I will find, with my colleagues, we will find a way to assure them that we will not go about implementing these TMDLs at horrendous cost to them. We will find cost-effective strategies. I find that there's some very hopeful things that we can do. I am volunteering I can't bring money to them as a board member. We don't have money to give them. State board has money. We don't. But I am volunteering my time on working on getting a ballot measure that this legislature authorized last year to put a water quality fee on, which will allow the county and the cities to charge money for water quality improvements as well as flood control improvements. And I think people in our county have voted over and over and over again for water quality improvements, and I think they will too if we all work together. That will give 40% of the monies will go to cities for operation and maintenance and projects. So I think in summary, one of the things that I want to tell you that I think is most important, that you're most well aware of, is that I also am very concerned about the diversity and makeup of our board, and that it does not now reflect the diversity of the community. And I have in the past encouraged many young people of color that are really experts to come and be on our board, and I look forward to serving on a more diverse board. We in this region have a huge challenge. As you know, our region is facing an uncertain water future, and we need the local water from stormwater, from recycled water, to make up for what is going to be undoubtedly much more expensive and less available water. So I think our boards have a very important, crucial role to play in the future economic and well-being of our region, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you for this time.
It's an excellent opening statement. Thank you. I'm going to start with Senator De Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Ms. Glickfeld, we had an opportunity to meet earlier today off the floor, and I thank you very much for carving out time coming up here to Sacramento. I know that you come highly recommended by a whole slew of organizations, NGOs, particularly in Southern California. I am impressed with your resume. I do want to thank you and underscore the importance of some of the points that you highlighted with regards to the diversity that is much needed on this commission, as well as a plethora in the other commissions, whether it's ethnic diversity, whether it's geographical diversity, and your pledge, your commitment to engage with all stakeholders, regardless of ideology, regardless of policy differences. Obviously, as we all know too well, those of us sitting here and this half horseshoe, we have to engage with all individuals, whether we concur, we don't concur, no matter how polarizing the issue may be and controversial. So I appreciate your commitment to the issue, again, of the diversity, both geographic and ethnic diversity on this specific commission. And then again, your commitment and strong willingness to address some of the concerns and hear the voices, if you will, of other individuals. You made reference to a meeting with Dr. Ed Hernandez, as well to Senator Ed Hernandez, and I think he very much appreciates also too hearing those comments.
Thank you.
Very good. Senator Fuller?
I understand you've been on the Regional Water Board for 10 years.
No, there was a letter that said that, but actually I was first appointed for a short term in 2008, March 2008. I took a remainder of a term for 2.5 years. That expired in September. So this would be my first full term, And I've been about a year, so I've been here about 3.5 years, but this would be my first full term.
If I may, there was a mix-up, I think. Some folks, it was Fran Diamond who's been on for that many years. Ms. Glickfield has only been on a short period of time, as she described, but somehow that got mixed up in the dialogue.
Well, that helps a little, so thank you.
I wouldn't do this for 10 years.
Well, actually, that's what I was going to say was, in the whole 10 years, was there this much controversy between the inland and the coastal cities? And if so, what had you tried? But since it's been a little shorter time, I'll rephrase it a little bit and just say that in the 3.5 years that you've been on, have you found any way that you can balance the needs of inland and coastal in a way in the future that makes them feel treated newly, I guess?
I read the letters in opposition very carefully, and I can tell you that I think there is a tremendous frustration on the part of these small cities who I worked for years ago as an urban planner. I've done redevelopment planning. I've done a lot of work with them. I know these areas. I grew up near there. There's a lot of frustration with the idea that there is a state board that can make them spend this much money. There's a lot of fear about what they might be required to spend in the future. It's been very difficult to assuage those fears, although a lot of the things that have been characterized are not things that our board wants to do. So I think it's really important that I continue to try to reach out. There are legal limitations, and the lawyer for the state board is here to explain that we deal with a lot of permit matters, and we're not allowed to speak to anybody outside the hearing room on those. So I'm going to have to keep my dialogues, as I talk to Senator De Leon, very general with them, and we can talk about the issues. But also I want to point out one last thing, which is that there has been divisions in our county between the coast and the inland areas on a whole host of issues. And this issue is very hard for the inland cities. The coast is very polluted, but it's far away for them. And so they don't really see that they should have that kind of responsibility. And I understand that. I understand that feeling. However, the science, which I have to follow, shows that some of the pollution is coming from those areas and that we have to address them in the least costly way possible.
Thank you. Senator Ahlquist.
Thank you. I appreciated meeting with you this morning. I think you are very qualified. I'm very supportive of your nomination. Senator Fuller asked one of the questions I was going to ask. The other question, which I think you answered, but if you have anything to add, is how do you respond to critics? Is there anything else you would want to have on the public record?
I think one of the things that I've been criticized for is being closer to and paying more attention to coastal cities and to the NGOs than I do to the cities. All I can tell you is that if you look at my voting record, what happens at these hearings, because we can have ex parte communications, the staff sends out a tentative permit. Everyone who wants to gets to have input, gives input to our staff. They decide what to change, what not to change, then comes before the board. The board then sees everything that's gone on before, and we go through a process of adding, changing, dealing with things. I can tell you that I have declined to support NGO requests as often as I have declined to support city and municipal permits, and I have supported city permits and supported NGOs. All I can do is work on what I think is the law and be as fair as possible, looking at the costs.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the way you're approaching the criticism, which comes in most any walk of public life. And the fact that you are being responsive to Senator De Leon, Senator Hernandez, and the report I gotten is that conversations are really moving in the right direction. This whole thing, though, about ex parte communication does make me want to just raise something publicly here, that maybe this is something that the legislature and the executive branch can kind of clarify a little bit for appointees. You know, when someone is in a quasi-adjudicatory capacity, which you're in, you're right. In some instances the law specifically allows for ex parte communication, and in some it doesn't. But so when it disallows you to, you can't have it, as you've said. On the other hand, as an appointed official with jurisdictional responsibilities and cities that are concerned about the decisions the board is making, there has to be a way for you as a representative to be able to interface with the public outside of the hearing room, separate from any specific issue or permit before a board, to be able to just dialogue and understand in a broad sense what the concerns and interests are. And sometimes I think, and I'm a lawyer and I'm proud of it, but sometimes we lawyer our appointees in such a way that they are so constricted to be able to broaden their public service a little bit. And I just wonder if, in listening to some of the concerns about your relationship with the cities, some of the cities, whether that's part of the problem here. And it may call for some guidance, because my view is that you have a responsibility to get out there and talk to these cities. Now, you can't talk to them about the specific case before your board, but it shouldn't be either or. Comment?
My comment is the lawyers are here, and I really would like, there's no question that when someone tells you if you do this, you're going to go to jail, and you vote, you pay attention to them. And so there hasn't been the effort. I have asked many times, can I do this way? Can I do it that way? I will find a way. We will be talking about it. I will find a way.
But you shouldn't be alone in trying to find a way here. This comes up in more than your context.
Right.
Senator De Leon has a comment or question, and then maybe we can get some legal guidance here in the public session.
I just want to enforce what you just articulated very nicely, Mr. Pro Tem. I'm not a lawyer, and I know
you play one in the movies.
I play one on the Senate floor. Obviously lawyers are important to keep folks out of trouble. And in this case, they want to make sure you do your job with the current laws. What I found very interesting during the course of our dialogue was the ex parte process, which I find a little befuddling, quite frankly. I don't know if it's the lawyer's fault. I don't know if it's the lawyer's interpretation or misinterpretation. But I find it very difficult because it constrains your ability to engage with all stakeholders on a whole array of issues. But if you would go back and the lawyer says, well, you can't do X, Y, and Z, well, perhaps maybe we have to change the law, because lawyers do play a very important role, but at times they can get in the way with overburdensome protections that are currently on the books. I find it very confusing when you have to engage, again, with all sectors and all stakeholders, but you can't do so because the lawyers say you can't do so. And Mr. Pro Tem makes a good point where there's something that's on the docket that is to be voted on. That I get. There's a separation of church and state, and we have to isolate those issues right there. But if you're handcuffed and blindfolded and in a straitjacket, and you're not able to engage with all stakeholders, how do you learn? How do you grow? How do you learn different points of views of what theoretically may make sense on one part of town, but the other part of town where they do want clean water, clean air, and so forth, but maybe there's some financial constraints, and that's what makes it much more confusing. So we want to make sure you have the ability to engage and get and extract as much as information as possible, so therefore you as an individual can make your own determination, moving forward. So I just want to add that I'm totally in agreement with you, Mr. Pro Tem.
And sir, is there a lawyer in the House?
I'm sure there's several, Senator Steinberg. I'm Michael Lawford, Chief Counsel for the State Water Resources Control Board, and my office advises the Los Angeles Regional Board as well. There is a lot of frustration, I understand, with the ex parte communications prohibition, and it actually does not apply to a large swath of the actions that come before the Los Angeles Board or any of the state's regional water quality control boards. As Senator Steinberg indicated, we have certain items where the board sits in a adjudicative capacity. They sit in a judge-like role, and those tend to be permitting actions, enforcement actions, and those types of actions, there is in the Administrative Procedure Act a prohibition on ex parte communications. There are ways to cure inadvertent ex parte communications, but the law is that communications to the decision makers, which are the board members, are prohibited. There is a larger swath of activities that the board does. This tend to be basin planning, general administrative matters, informational items that are not subject to a prohibition on ex parte communications. I have had a chance to review most of the letters that have come in, and the letters typically are raising issues with respect to what are known as total maximum daily loads. These are a quasi-legislative function that the boards take. These are cleanup plans on a basin-wide or watershed-specific basis, and those are in fact not subject to ex parte communications prohibitions. And what the boards do and their executive officers do is they attempt to work together to ensure that the information is available to the board and available to the public. And so they schedule a series of workshops and meetings when these items come up so that stakeholders of all stripes have an opportunity to comment to the boards. And the same thing happens when they're in an ex parte communication prohibition situation. They notice it so that everybody can hear the same record, the same testimony, the same concerns at the same time. But this is something we worked with over the years and worked with the regions to give them the flexibility within the constraints of the existing laws. There are exceptions for some of the other boards and commissions that really go on a disclosure-based approach as opposed to a prohibition. But the water boards, when they're in a judge-like capacity, it is a prohibition.
Right. I do sense from Ms. Glickfield's experience here and this conversation that maybe the rules need to be clarified, not just in the restrictive fashion, because again, we're in the same fraternity here, lawyers. We tend to want to protect our clients from violating the law, but the opposite is sort of as important, which is to be very clear about what you can do. And I think what I'm hearing here is that maybe this needs to be reiterated, clarified, not just in the negative, but in the positive as well.
Okay. And I'd be happy to share with you, there is a document that all of our board members receive when they're first appointed that explains the ex parte process and discusses the very positive aspects of communications with stakeholders in the appropriate forums and when the prohibition is in place. I'm happy to share that with the Senator.
Thank you. So, we've had a good academic discussion about the ex parte rules here. Let's hear from witnesses in support of the nominee.
Thank
you. Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land, and I'm very happy to have an opportunity to speak to you in strong support of the appointment of Madeline Glickfeld. Madeline has been on the Trust for Public Lands California Advisory Board since 2007. However, her relationship with us as a consultant, supporter, and friend has gone back over 30 years. As a member of the Trust for Public Lands Advisory Board, Madeline has provided invaluable guidance and support to our Los Angeles program, a program that extends from the San Gabriel Mountains to the Santa Monica Bay. However, what our LA program has been focused on more than anything else is greening and making a healthier place for the underserved communities in Los Angeles.
I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to not read an entire statement. If you
Sure.
can just, we're happy to take it as part of the record. Just give us a summary of your 30 years of experience knowing Ms. Glickfeld.
Well, I would concentrate on the fact that she has helped direct our organization to work in the most underserved communities in Los Angeles to green them. Obviously, when you put green spaces in urban areas, you recharge groundwater, you direct stormwater properly, you replace cement and glass with permeable surfaces, all which benefit one of the most polluted areas in California. So she's helped to focus our energies in the Los Angeles region in the urban areas where they're needed most.
Thank you very, very much. And again, you take the statement and put it in the record.
I will.
Okay, very good.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Nothoff with the Natural Resources Defense Council, and I've had an opportunity to observe Ms. Glickfeld in a variety of public service positions over the last 20 years. I think it's fair to say that she's kind of a wonk. She digs into the details. I'm glad that the lawyer here explained what a TMDL is total maximum daily load, which is actually required by the federal Clean Water Act, and it's the responsibility of the regional board to figure out how to apply that most fairly and effectively at the regional level. And as you can tell, there can be tensions, but I think that it is required by the federal Clean Water Act, and the board must figure out a way to comply with that. So I just wanted to emphasize that she has had a record of working. The board does generally work on a consensus basis, and we urge her confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Warner Chabot. On behalf of our 50,000 members and activists with the California League of Conservation Voters, we support the confirmation of Madeline Glickfeld. We think she brings extensive experience and expertise on water quality and watershed planning issues. We think she brings a common sense approach, encourages scientific solutions to benefit the economy and the environment. She's led the board in cleanup efforts on polluted sites in low and middle income communities. She was part of a board effort to get $15 million in funds to inland communities to try to meet the TMDL requirements. She works with a professional staff that tries to bring recommendations and policy issues to the board based on good science and economics with good technical and legal advice. If you want new members and new blood on the board, please note that it is a 9-member board with now 3 vacancies this year in 2011 and 2 more vacancies that come up next year. So there is ample opportunity to look at those vacancies to increase what we believe and support of increasing the geographic and ethnic diversity on the board. We know the governor's office is interviewing vetting candidates, and we are trying to work to help identify additional candidates. We think that Madeline's voting record is not unique. Most of the board decisions in the last in the time that Madeline has been on the board have been unanimous decisions, so there's no reason to try to single out her votes or single out her for some special treatment in the confirmation process. We urge your confirmation.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Justin Malone on behalf of Hilda Bay. In the interest of time, I don't want to echo what Warner and others have said. Hilda Bay is very supportive. I do want to stress the point that Warner just made about not singling out this member. She's a great environmental vote, but most importantly, she has the technical expertise, the policy expertise. We believe she's fair, and we urge your confirmation of this appointment.
Thank you. Are there other witnesses in support? Sir. Any witnesses in opposition to the nominee? Come on forward. Please. You can all take seats at either table. And again, I want to give you this approximate same amount of time as we gave the supporters. Ask, not to read formal statements, but to express your views. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Senator Steinberg and members of the committee. My name is Ron Reese. I'm the Polo Works Director over at the City of San Fernando. And I'm here, unfortunately, having to, on behalf of the city, oppose Mrs. Glickfeld's reappointment to the Los Angeles Regional Board. Our objections to the reappointment is based on her voting record, on TMDLs, bacteria and metals in particular. Well,
slow it down and...
Slow down? Okay, sorry.
And,
okay. While San Fernando understands the need for TMDLs, we don't understand why she has supported a method of compliance that exceeds those of other jurisdictions. The San Diego and Santa Ana regional boards have allowed the use of best management practice to achieve compliance without having to absolutely meet the daily numeric target. We don't understand why this option was not extended to us. Furthermore, most of the runoff from the city of San Fernando would not reach the ocean waters. It would instead be detained in spreading grounds, which act as a filtration device. And all non-storm water would be detained in those infiltration basins, posing no threat to water quality. Yet San Fernando would be required to spend $1.7 million per year over a 20-year period in order to meet the TMDL for the Los Angeles River. Also disturbing is that Ms. Glickfeld doesn't seem to understand the cost impact in order for us to comply with these TMDLs and our ability to pay for something like this. Just briefly, our city is a very small city. We're 2.4 square miles, just over 24,000 people. We're about 89% Latino, and we also have a sizable low-income community, a portion of the community. As most cities are facing right now, we're in a very difficult situation with our budget. We're trying to have a reserve for our general fund, which we frankly don't have right now. We are facing issues as far as our water supply. We have nitrates in our water, and we're trying to finance that effort so that we can have a nitrate removal system, which is in the millions of dollars. To try to comply with something like this at this point is just, I'm not sure how we would do it. We have so many other things that are going on right now. We're facing furloughs and layoffs for the city, and we're also reducing certain services. And usually first to go are your park services, programs that benefit youth. So we're not against essentially what the goal is of TMDL. We know it's important. We know we want clean water, we want clean oceans, but it's just the method and how we're doing this and the lack of discussion about how we can actually implement something like this. In my 12 years working with the city, I've worked on many grants. I'm very familiar with the grants process, federal and state and philanthropy groups. I'm not aware of any sources of funds right now that would help to pay for something like this. Okay. So how do we implement something like this? This is the question.
Thank you. As we heard from the lawyer earlier, the TMDL, say that right? TMDL. The TMDL process is not subject to the ex parte restriction, so that maybe leads us to a path here to establish some better communication. Sir.
Yes, Chairman Steinberg and the board, thank you and good afternoon. My name is Steve Espenshade. I work for the City of Duarte. I'm the engineering division manager for the City of Duarte. It's a small bedroom community about 10 miles to the east of Pasadena, right up against the foothills. We also oppose the appointment of Madeline Glickfield to the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board, and for, of course, the same reasons that my colleague from San Fernando just explained. We are subject to a number of TMDLs for the LA River, as well as what's coming down for the San Gabriel River. And, for example, the bacteria TMDL that's being proposed for the next permit is estimated to cost $1.7 million to the City of Duarte also, since we're approximately the same size, per year over a 20-year period. We're not opposed to TMDLs. We're not opposed to clean water. We are opposed to strict numeric limits and the financial implications that entails. So we feel that better methods are out there. We have implemented other methods such as bioswales and retention basins and detention basins with very satisfactory results. But strict numeric limits and the litigation issues that are involved there are not something we can support. The TMDLs that are coming down are just financially impossible for the City of Duarte to absorb.
Thank you.
Honorable Darrell Steinberg and committee members, my name is Dan Medina. I'm the city councilman for the city of Gardena. We have about 60,000 constituents in our city. And while the city of Gardena supports clean water, neither Gardena nor most of the other cities in LA County can afford such an expenditure. Even at the best of economic times, our city can't even increase our budget for our public safety, public works, and recreation, let alone pay for polluted treatment. Also, there's very little grant money available to pay such types of treatments and controls that would be needed to comply with the TMDLs. In any case, much of the funding that's available has gone to the coastal cities, and what we're asking is, what we need is a regional board that can fairly balance the needs of the environment against the needs of the citizens who depends on the sorely needed municipal programs and services, especially those who live in the communities that are not as endowed as Santa Monica and Malibu and other coastal cities. Gardena is about 17 miles inland of the beach areas. Finally, on the urging of an overwhelming majority of cities in LA County, approximately 60 of them, the League of California Cities and the Los Angeles Division adopted a resolution calling for the state's elected and regulatory officials to adopt fair and reasonable stormwater regulations. Ms. Glickfield and other members of the regional board have not, and I repeat, have not to this day been responsive to those concerns. And we would like to bring out a point that in San Francisco there was a diazinon problem where highly caustic pesticide was damaging the environment as DDT, but it did not require the municipal permittees to build treatment plants or, for that matter, remediate some of the contaminated areas. And it is for this very same reason that we ask that she not be confirmed to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, for coming to testify. We appreciate it. Sir, did you testify, sir?
No, not yet.
Not yet? It's your turn.
I believe Renee Bobadilla is up, but that's okay.
Okay, I'm going to, again, we're going to make sure that folks, you've come a long way, so I want to give you your time. Just if you can be as brief as possible.
Yes,
appreciate it.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Chair Steinberg, members of the Senate Rules Committee, my name is Ray Tahir, and I represent a number of cities on stormwater matters in Los Angeles County, about 20, as a matter of fact. I'm representing today the cities of Carson, Irwindale, Glendora, Lawndale, Lomita, and West Covina, who couldn't make it today. I have really the unpleasant task of expressing opposition to Ms. Glickfield's reappointment to the regional board. It is unpleasant because it's recognized that she has dedicated herself to improving coastal waters in Los Angeles for well over a decade. I believe her total time on the regional board has been about 11 hours because she was initially appointed by the Wilson administration. Weren't you appointed by Wilson?
I think you might have the wrong person here.
Maybe I did. Sorry. Be that as it may.
We don't, you know.
We get you. I get you.
We don't want to oppose.
Her devotion to improving coastal waters is quite apparent. But the problem is that her over-concern for the coastal communities has been detrimental to the inland communities. And this is because of her zeal, and not just her, but other members of the board, have pushed for TMDL regulations that exceed most other TMDL requirements in the state of California. Councilman Medina just pointed out that in San Francisco, a diazinon TMDL was adopted. Not a bad TMDL. For cities up in San Francisco, it's pretty easy to comply with. You implement what is known as best management practices. And if you implement those practices, you're deemed to be in compliance with that numeric standard, even if you don't actually meet it. But the TMDLs that have been supported by Ms. Glickfield and others are more concentrated on a stricter standard, absolute compliance with the numeric. For example, for copper for LA River, the standard is 9 kilograms per day. If you exceed that under the next permit, you will be in noncompliance. And you will be subject to litigation from NRDC and enforcement action from the regional board. This is not far-fetched. This has happened before. NRDC effectively sued the County of Los Angeles Flood Control District for not meeting numeric standards for the LA and the San Gabriel Rivers. They are now facing significant fines and settlement costs. In 2008, a bacteria TMDL for Santa Monica Bay beaches was incorporated into the current MS4 permit. Shortly after it was implemented, 22 cities were held in violation simply because they couldn't meet this tough bacteria standard. Again, it was to meet a numeric target rather than having the option of implementing BMPs to address bacteria.
Okay.
So, to make a long story short, that's what our concern is. There's no need for such stringency.
You want more flexibility from this board to find the more cost-effective ways to be able to meet the environmental goal. Is that what I'm hearing?
There's no need for that standard to be that stringent. Los Angeles County has the most stringent requirements in the state of California and in the United States. Thank you, Senator, for your patience. I appreciate it.
Is there another witness in opposition?
Forgive me for that, Mr. Early.
Well, you only hold
I do now.
Only hold the nominee responsible for what she's actually done. No problem. We understand it was an innocent mistake. Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Chair Steinberg and committee members. My name is Renee Bobadilla. I'm the city manager for the city of El Monte, and I do have the privilege to be also a licensed civil engineer in my capacity as a city manager. And I also am regrettably compelled to oppose Ms. Glickfield's appointment. I was very fortunate in 1999 to have worked for LA County Department of Public Works back when TMDLs were being talked about. And at that time, as a flood control engineer, our task was to keep people from being flooded. I understand the complexity of TMDLs, and I actually understand the complexity of stormwater and the types of contaminants stormwaters contain. And the city of El Monte is a town of 135,000 people. We sit in between two tributaries, the San Gabriel River and the Rio Hondo River. So we do understand the effects of trash and components that end up in the water and the need to clean them. However, tasked with balancing a budget and being able to keep services in our city, I had a $50 million budget. In 2009, we cut $14.5 million of that budget and laid off 100 employees. And here we're being tasked by the Regional Water Quality Control Board to comply, and it's like you're beating a dead horse. We're not going to be able to comply. Just like all the other cities that are here in opposition, we want to be able to comply, and I think Honorable Chair Steinberg hit it right on the button, is we need flexibility, we need collaboration, we need solutions, because 10 years ago, the board is no longer closer in a solution than they were today, because they don't exist. The technology is not as advanced as it should be. But we need to be talking about solutions and ways to solve these problems. And City of El Monte is definitely on board with collaboration, but we need flexibility, and we need the time to be able to do this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Glickfeld, without going through responding to every specific complaint and detail, what have you heard over the last several minutes?
Well, I've heard a great deal of frustration on the part of the cities, a lot of concern about costs, a feeling that the board is acting in a more stringent way than other regional boards. I feel that they're frustrated that they don't have money coming to support some of these things. So those are the issues. If you want me to respond to those, I can certainly do that.
No, I think, given a time constraint, I want to know whether or not, as a result of the beginning of this process, including today's hearing, that you have gained some insight that you maybe previously did not have regarding the frustrations which you heard here today.
I think I've known about the frustrations. I haven't known, in fact, it was my impression that I couldn't even talk to them about TMDLs. And now that I know that I can, I think one of the things that has to happen is that from our perspective, on, for instance, our bacterial TMDL, we just passed that in June with a 25-year implementation period. That's after the first TMDL requirements were notified to the city in 1991. That's 45 years. Needless to say, though, that if there are serious problems with the other example is that our trash TMDL is exactly the kind of TMDL that they want to have. If they do X, then they're in compliance, no matter what the standard is. They're in compliance. I think that there are possibilities for the trash TMDL implementation to serve the bacterial TMDL. When you catch trash, you catch bacteria, you catch contaminants. So I would like to engage on these issues. I'm convinced that if we can engage better, if they can submit their documentation on what they think the costs are, and we can talk to them about what the other options are, we can solve these problems. I can't take money out. I don't have a checkbook, but I certainly can. We think there's the flexibility with the very, very long time frames that we're giving, and we don't think we're the most stringent board in the state. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. I think it's been a very instructive hearing. My recommendation here is that we put off the vote for a week. We know we're coming to the end of this session, but I think that this was the start of a very important conversation, and I'd like it to continue over the next week between yourself, the affected senators, Senator De Leon, the stakeholders here, on both the proponents and the opponents here, and would like to know that if we move forward, and I would tend to be supportive of your nomination, if we move forward, that there really is a clear understanding about lines of communication and about your really hearing some of what was said today.
There is, Mr. Chairman, I have made a commitment to Senator Hernandez. I've made a commitment to Senator De Leon. I make the commitment to all of you here today, all of the Senate Rules Committee, and I make the commitment to the opponents to sit down and listen to what they have to say and try to find a way where we can get to consensus, as long as I don't end up going to jail.
We'll make sure that doesn't happen, okay? All right, Senator, anything else? No, we're very good. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate your time. You know, we could get on during public testimony, too. If you want to do that, I think that'd be fun. Forget Bob, Gene. I talked to you. Yes, we're going to take a 7-minute and 25-second break.